Welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with Daniel.
And Daniel.
Welcome to our Wednesday discussion post. Bum-ba-ra. This is a good one this week. In our weekly discussion post, we call it Chits and Giggles. What we like to do is we pose a question to the viewers of this channel, our audience, and then Daniel and I make a little top 3 list as well, with some honorable mentions here and there of what we think would work perfectly for the discussion. What was our discussion this week, Daniel?
Our discussion this week is what games should get the legacy treatment.
And what do you mean by legacy?
So what we mean by that is what's going to happen is what game should we get new stuff for every time we play it? Should we open things? Do rules change? How does it open up the game for you? Basically an overall campaign to play through over a series of games.
Yeah. And so you make also with the I almost said Pandemic Legacy. I'm just so used to saying that, but that's a prime example of it. The legacy versions of a game, I also consider like you make permanent alterations to the game that you cannot go back and change. That's the biggest difference between that and a campaign. Like a campaign, you're like, oh, I did bad on that. But if I would have made a different choice, let's just play that again. And that's not how real life happens, of course. And that's why I think Legacy is so impactful. But also, that's why it was so difficult for me to make this list.
No, it wasn't too hard for me because a lot of the games I play actually just kind of breed themselves for Legacy.
Right. Now, I know there's a game that you like to say that I always like to weasel into like every top list that we do, and I assure you, it's not on this list.
Shocking. There's like a series of like 2 games that you weasel in onto every list.
What's the other one?
It's Carcassonne and Dominion.
Oh, yeah. So, both of those I thought of, but really, like, they're so good on their own. A legacy, I don't think would actually change. I don't think it would be beneficial to the game.
Well, see, here's the thing. You're saying they're so good on their own, but Pandemic was good on its own, and look what Legacy did to it. It killed the original Pandemic.
That's true. I don't know. I mean, I like how
Case in point, you used to say Machi Koro was great on its own, and then you played Legacy.
Yeah,
Will you go back to regular Machi Koro?
Yes.
I know your wife won't.
No, that's only what we play, and we can play Machi Koro Legacy, and we don't. We can. We only play the base game now. So that's a weird thing, right? I mean, it's replayable, yet we haven't played it since because we also didn't have the same group too. And one of our mutual friends, Jim, who played Machi Koro the entire way with us, Legacy, doesn't even care for Machi Koro, and that didn't change his mind. So, I mean...
But what's to say that you and the wife can't play the thing? You don't need your group to play it. It's already a brand new game that you can play as 2 players.
You're right. It is that way. The thing is, our son plays with it now. And he plays Machi Koro with us. And that he didn't get to experience. And so, it's not that it would be difficult for him to learn, because it would be pretty easy. It's just, it's not the same. Like, I think Machi Koro...
it sounds to me like you just need to get a second copy of Machi Koro Legacy and play with the 3 of you.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, honestly, it's one of those Legacy games that it doesn't matter if you know the end. Like, the story is pretty fun. I'm not going to lie. It's a funny story. But it doesn't... In between each games, it's not going to change how you deal with the game that you're presented with at the moment. Case in point, My City. I know I've brought this up before. Eric Martin's review from Board Game Geek, he tells you all of everything that's happening in My City. And then, like, I just watched Corner to Corner with Rahdo and Tom Vassell of Dice Tower, and Rahdo of Rahdo Runs Through, and they were like, oh, well, I mean, My City, which, we're going to tell you something, but it's not a spoiler. It's like, it doesn't matter. The spoiler, there's no story, and the modules that come in and change things, they're not going to, like, knowing what I know isn't going to change how I affect or how I change the game. And that's why I think it was so difficult for me, is because I wanted a game that I think would actually be enriched by not knowing what was coming up next and which would best pull benefit from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you'll like my list. I'm curious to see what you think of it. I really am. But
It's probably going to be bland and boring. We've already established you.
yeah, it's gonna be up there.
All right.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. But first, what have you been playing lately?
Oh, I've been playing not a lot. I have read the rules for Bottom of the Ninth since, baseball season started over, so I'm getting ready to start up a solo play of it.
Oh, nice.
I'm really intrigued to get into that one. But I have played, we had a Zoom call with some friends of ours to hang out, and we played Just One, which is still a phenomenal game over Zoom, and we also played Cartographers, which,
cool.
I've talked about it a lot. I love that game. It's actually a really great game to be playing over social distancing aspects of it.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal one. As long as you have the page, it's easy, and you can print it out.
Yeah, and then they have them on BGG. They have a low ink page where you have 2 A's and 2 B's for one page.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense.
And you? What have you been playing?
So I haven't played. Actually, no, that's a lie. I have played a couple games with my in-laws. I've been showing them a lot of little card games. Just recently taught them Bonanza. They really liked the game. Right after I had shown you how to play it, I brought it over to their house and taught them how to play it, and they liked it. And we also played Tadam, which is it's a weird party game from Madigo, and the idea it's one of those like Pictionary. You draw a picture, people try and guess it. But the catch is that you have this like little folding board that each side closes like window shutters, and the first player who draws opens up the right side and draws the right side of the picture, and then the other person has to draw the left side of the picture without looking at each other's, and then you reveal them both at the same time, and they come up with the most absurd, weird images that you're trying to figure out how the two halves work together. And there was an absolutely hilarious one that I played this with our friend Jim, and you can pick which one you draw, and he picked a one-armed man. Which led to a lot of questions like, and you're not allowed to communicate who draws what part. so I forget how he did it. But yeah, he ended up, I think it was like a severed hand that was down on the ground, and the guy had it gone, so even if mine was hiding or whatever, like, that was very clear. It was bizarre, but it worked.
Sounds very strange.
Yeah.
Very, very strange.
But I did get some new ones in the mail that I want to show off real quick.
No.
One is Turn in Taxis. Or if you notice, take a look at the cover. Turn un Taxis.
So for our audio listeners, again, I am sorry. I have to keep telling Daniel over here, this is not show and tell.
It was just a reveal.
It's just tell.
No, it was Turn un Taxis, which I found out that in my haste to buy it, it was not the English version. But that's okay. God. It's like super language independent. I had to print out the rule book, and there's like reference cards. That's the only thing that has language on it. So, I mean, it's no different than anything else. It's like Ticket to Ride. You don't need language dependency on that. But
okay,
then,
that's fine.
I also got some promos for Mystic Vale. Yep, which was fun.
You're fired. This is the last time we can do show and tell. We
I'm
have
just
audio
saying.
listeners.
No, I'm just saying them, and I'm just showing you while I'm saying them. That's all it is. And I also got Blackout Hong Kong.
The only problem is you're shaking things up in there, which is making noise, which I have to edit out.
Okay, that's fine. That's more work for you. That's fine. No, Blackout Hong Kong, which
You're
is one
gonna lose
that...
your editor here.
Oh, man. Could I hire a new one? Nah, not
You
really.
don't even pay me.
I know. Very few people work as cheaply as you do.
So,
no, but Blackout Hong Kong is one that you and I are both interested. Alexander Pfister looks super cool. I'm just worried about the colorblind friendliness of it.
Yeah, some of those cubes look a little hard to deal with.
A lot of grays,
I have looked at the game.
A lot of pinks. Yeah. I'm a little worried about that. We'll see. Maybe it'll be easier than I thought, but it doesn't yet seem that way. But that's the new ones on my list.
So I have bought some new ones as well. I have, let me see up there, I got Pan Am. That's one of my more recent ones that I've gotten from Prospero Hall. Haven't played it yet. really nice. It's weird. The board actually is kind of like old school, like that clothy back, has that weird thick feel that you would get with the classic like 1960s, 70s board games.
That's cool.
I also picked up The Game, as we talked about.
Which one?
The Game.
Oh.
If you got to think about it, you're already lost.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Darn, not again.
And then also, I just recently bought, because of the Gen Con sales on Amazon, Teotihuacan, as well as Ventures, the dungeon one, I think, is the one I bought.
Oh,
because
cool.
they were on sale. So I picked 2 of those up while I could.
See, I didn't actually see those for sale. Maybe I was just at the wrong timing, but I probably would have gone.
You had to go into the deal of the day on Amazon to see all those deals, or gaming deals on Twitter. They have usually the entire list for the Gen Con sales. But yeah, so went ahead and picked it up, and they just recently got shipped, so I should get them sometime this weekend.
Cool. Very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to playing your copies of those.
I've been really wanting to try Teotihuacan, so I'm glad I picked it up, and for the price, I can't complain. I think it was $35.
Yeah, if you and I want to learn it before you play, if you're not able to get it like to the table with your wife or anybody else by the time we have our next gaming day, whenever that may be, it is on Board Game Arena, and you and I can learn together if you want.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. In all honesty, I'm going to look at it and want to see it when it comes in first. But with that being said, you want to get started with our Facebook post?
Yeah. So, what games should get a legacy version, and why? This was a cool topic. As I said, it was very difficult for me. I'll get into that later. But I haven't read through all of them yet, so I'm curious to see if any of my... I don't think any of mine will have mentioned.
As always, I kind of ignore it until I have my list, and I've gone through it from time to time because it kept sending me notifications on my phone, and I just kept watching it grow. We actually got a nice response from it.
Yeah,
for everybody out there,
comments.
100 and something, yeah. For everybody out there, where we comment or we place this, as we said before, is on Facebook, website, on the Board Game Revolution group. I think it's what it's called.
Yep. Yeah, and we want to thank again, like the owners of that. They let us post discussion things all the time. It's super cool. And yeah, it makes really fun discussion, and more people get in on it every time. So we're going to
try to get through these really quickly. There is a lot of comments. We don't want to make this and drag it out like we have before. So let's move on.
Yeah.
So the first one is by David, and he says he would like Castle Panic with each play being a night.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I didn't even think of that, but yes, I completely agree. There's something about like fiction-based cooperative games that I think really work well with Legacy.
Oh yeah, especially something like that where it's just that intensity that you're going, and then the way you could do it where like each game is, well, here's your inner game goals. You could either replace one of the walls or make sure your tower's patched up or stuff like that, or you get more powerful weapons.
Yeah.
But what happened in the game, if you lost a couple walls, well then, oh no. And then as you're going along, it starts adding bad stuff like the boulder, which could be helpful, but also knock crap down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you have to legitimately rebuild stuff instead of just playing a couple cards. Yeah, I love that idea. I mean, I can see it evolving into like a Dead Panic variation and having it be Army of Darkness, the tower defense game. It would be amazing.
And another good thing that you kind of see that Castle Panic does lend itself to a campaign-style game when you play a game like Star Trek Panic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which does have the campaign element to it.
Mm-hmm, sure does. Matt says Trickerion, and help introduce mechanics and become a more skilled magician sounds fun. I do agree with that. I don't know how they would implement it because it's a really heavy Euro game. And being a magician, yeah, I can see that. It's less skill and more showmanship.
But the way they could start it out is like you're an apprentice. This way they could start showing the rules to you as you go along. Kind of like Jaws of the Lion for Gloomhaven, where the first 5 scenarios is just the integration of how the game plays.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more, though. That's a phenomenal pick. Two of some of my favorite games of all time.
And so Jonathan adds he would like to see Twilight Imperium. You make it bigger, add new mechanics, and it would be interesting. And Twilight Imperium would be interesting. I actually have something along those lines in my honorable mentions that I'll get to a little later. But it is something that would be neat to see, like those grandiose games, adding a new race once you discover a certain area that could be added to the game. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree. Tamaray, forgive me if I mispronounce that name, but I believe it's Tamaray, says Firefly. Sessions can include cooperative solo play missions and upgrades to your ship to stay with you throughout the play. You and I have talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Firefly, the board
game. I
game.
don't disagree with this at all.
Yeah, I mean, even whether it's the Firefly, the board game, or one of the other ones, like Fistful of Credits or whatever it's called, or...
yeah, something like that. Brown coats or...
Right.
Brigands and brown coats or something like that.
Yeah, if they made a legacy just Firefly game, yes. Absolutely.
Oh, no, I don't disagree. I'm down. Anything Firefly, I'm always interested in. Tom said, I could see anything with an asymmetric character factions doing well because it includes choosing different characters, factions as a story building mechanic involving different alliances. And that would be intriguing. That really would. He doesn't specifically state a game, and some of these are people on the comment section, I need to get a disclaimer here, did specifically say games. They said IPs that they think would be interesting as well as games.
Right.
Then also a couple jokes in here, like this next one.
Like Rick says, none. Clearly he doesn't like Legacy.
And Richard says, Uno Legacy. You tear up all the cards in your hand if you lose.
To which Matt replies, isn't that every game of Uno?
And then Matt says...
I hate to say it, but if we're talking marketability, then Monopoly Legacy. And actually, so that actually came into my mind while thinking about this. If you saw what he did with Risk Legacy, and we're talking Rob Davio specifically, if you saw what he did with Risk Legacy, that would be, I mean, I would totally play a Monopoly Legacy. 100%. I'd be excited.
It'd be interesting because we've about 2 or 3 games through Risk Legacy before lockdown happened, and we've enjoyed the mess out of just the 3 games that we played.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine? And they're already making like different variations of Monopoly, so why not?
So why not a Legacy? And you literally could be a real estate tycoon in that game. It'd be intriguing.
Yeah. And so, I get why it's marketable, but also Rob Davio doesn't work for Hasbro anymore, so that's also part of it. So
John says Concordia, multiple generation trading families during the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Just for that historical content alone would get me to buy that game.
Oh yeah. Have you played Concordia?
I have not, but I love the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, and I think it would intrigue me.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how the things evolve, like as you're trading goods and building cities and whatnot. I think that'd be really cool. Justin says, Galaxy Trucker Legacy, your ship stays constant from game to game and you have to repair and modify it. That sounds hard. That sounds brutal.
I get it, but yeah, I haven't played Galaxy Trucker, but it's not a game that's ever piqued my interest to play.
Yeah.
Steven says, Legacy, the testament of Duke de Cressy. In the original game, you're a patriarch of a noble family. The winner in this one is who generates the most prestigious family tree in the next 3 generations.
Interesting.
That sounds Euro through and through. That's your end of the...
Yeah, I don't disagree with it. Chris says, Lords of Waterdeep, because giving the characters a story arc would make it sing. I don't disagree with that.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree with that. I actually really do think that would be something that you could really build off of.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Lords of Waterdeep myself, but adding that legacy aspect into it, where these creations and these characters become something that you get attached to, might be able to help me enjoy the game more than I already do, or dislike. And
there's a whole heap of discussion afterwards, and I want to put out one comment that replied to it, and that's Andrew saying, Chris, I didn't realize I wanted this until this comment. I love that.
All right, next up is you.
All right, Francisco says, I guess I'd love to follow a legacy version of Eldritch Horror. I'd also love to play a legacy version of Dead of Winter. I thought of Dead of Winter too. I think that'd be a cool one.
One of these games is on my list, so let's just move on.
Okay. Sounds good.
So Michael says, Scythe, more tech progressions, permanent effects, hexes, and some kind of AI mechanic fighting back. That must be vanquished. I get what he's saying here, but the Rise of Fenris actually added a campaign to Scythe, the expansions. So
yeah, and that one of the commenters said that it's like, have you tried it, or tried Legacy of Fenris or Legacy of Rise of Fenris? Yeah. Sam said Power Grid because why not?
Because it's Power Grid. That's why. Joseph says none. Legacy is dumb.
Yeah, I don't. And then Lehane says none. They're wasteful and stupid. There's a lot of hate going for this.
Yes, because next up is Benjamin. None, because it's more waste.
I don't see the problem here. Like, they clearly.
I'm sorry. Skip the next one. It's more of a comment for the people above.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Josh says Uno.
Timothy says Root Legacy could be interesting, which would be cool. And it goes back earlier when someone said asymmetric characters.
Yep. Pete says Agricola Legacy with technology advancing.
Where did you jump to? Because you missed someone.
I jumped over Edward. Restating none as well. Okay. But yeah, sorry, there's a lot of comments after that. We created a ruckus, as usual. Agricola Legacy with technology advancing with each successive deck.
I get that. And Daryl says Dead of Winter seriously needs a Legacy version.
Yep. Jason Lee says Uno.
And I like the going back to Daryl over here. Someone tagged Jonathan Gilmour into it.
Oh, really?
Michael tagged, he would pay all the money for this and then tag Jonathan Gilmour in it.
Couldn't agree more. I would pay money
Enrico
for that.
says, Battlestar Galactica. Could you imagine a permanently altering and shifting version of the game where characters live, die, and possibly respawn as Cylons? And a multi-mission epic stretching the whole show, maybe minus the stupid writing decisions in the last season. Which, I completely agree with him about the last season.
I haven't seen it, so I guess so.
I've never actually played the game itself. I've heard good things about it, but I've never played it.
Right. Fred says Operation. Kidding. How about Spirit Island? Even This War Is Mine.
So Spirit Island, interesting, and we'll talk about it a little later because I know there's one further down in the comment section. But even This War of Mine, I've heard that's a really dark game, and that would be an intriguing one for a Legacy because it shows the possibilities of what can happen to people during war.
Yeah, it'd be really dark. It'd be almost like the campaign of The Grizzled.
Yeah, almost. It'd be intriguing to play. Tony says Candyland.
Yep, and Jason
and
says...
it's funny because that may be a joke, but I wouldn't have a problem with Candyland Legacy in a sense because it'd be a good introduction to a Legacy game for kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it goes back to like the Monopoly idea. I'm not against that. Jason says The Fog of Love to keep the passion alive.
I still have to play that game. I'm trying to get the wife to play it. I did get her to play the game though, so there was that.
You did?
Yeah.
You actually got it to
we
the
lost.
table? Oh, well, yeah, we lost.
Yeah, I haven't got Fog of Love to the table. I did get her to play the game, so slowly but surely I'm getting her to play more.
Gotcha.
Michael says, Ticket to Ride. Natural disasters destroy rails, cities build up, and get more connections. Which I'm okay with. That actually sounds like a good time.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. I'm going to skip the next one, because I don't get it. I'll just say it. David says Legacy Paintball. You have to go to Paint Hospital to recover for months. I don't...
Sure.
Maybe it's a joke I don't get.
Josh says Tapestry should have been a Legacy State game instead of what it became. But I would maybe say Terraforming Mars. Again, Let's just move on because another one of these games is on my list.
Okay. Dav says a Legacy version and a non-Legacy version. Every game, I guess.
Okay. Scott says Legacy games work best when A, the core game is well known, B, the game lends itself to storytelling, and C, the game expands well. Very few games actually fit this criteria. However, my vote would be for Clue, and I don't disagree with him on this.
Yes, he.
Especially if you do like a tongue-in-cheek clue based off the movie with God, what's his name? I can't think of his name now,
Yeah.
but the guy who played Pennywise.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Tim Meadows?
Tim
No,
Curry.
Tim Curry. Not Tim
Yeah.
Meadows. That's a very different actor. Tim Curry. Yes. Yeah. No. I personally, I think Scott has like one of the best thought out um, posts, and I'm going to go more into that when how I came up with my top three. Is I really kind of went with that same mindset. Is a game that has a good uh, way for it to expand itself and include story
Yeah,
aspects
yeah,
into
I
it.
don't disagree with you.
I think
My
that's
top
important.
three, my three games that aren't on my honorable mentions is goes along those lines. It's a good core game, lends itself to good storytelling, and expands well. So those are what I went with.
Yes, absolutely. Malcolm says Arkham Horror.
And Mike adds that would be terrifying.
But
Elizabeth again adds Uno.
what? I mean, is there like something that I'm not aware of that's causing everybody to say Uno? This is blowing my mind right now. I mean, is this just like some weird inside joke that I just don't understand?
I don't get it either.
I wish I knew. Fabian says Everdell, a journey through the 100 years of history of the greatest cities of the valley. That's super cool.
Yeah, that would be really good. One, it's already got that cute factor. It's got that game factor with the tree, and you know what would be cool about that is as you're going along, the tree is growing taller and taller. It starts out as like this little sapling and becomes the ever tree.
Yeah, that would be cool.
All right, so Lee says something classic: Monopoly, Shoots and Ladders. Sorry.
Alex says terraforming Mars, already in the works, I believe. I haven't heard anything about that, but that sounds cool.
Nor have I. Yeah.
Dead of Winter.
I know they just did the big box thing, but other than that,
Right. Dead of Winter, Underwater Cities, or Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle Earth. I think that since the campaign part of it is so strong, I don't know if we would need a legacy version of it.
I agree. The campaign is so strong. I would like a legacy version of this. Just imagine as you're opening, you're getting more characters or more bad guys. You're discovering the fact that what's his face is Sauron is waking up. Bridging the Hobbit in Lord of the Rings a little bit more would actually be kind of cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Omar says Mansions of Madness. They could easily do with that with a single expansion. And it goes
Yes,
along
they
the lines
could.
of Lord of the Rings.
Yep. Yeah. John says something superhero themed would be cool. I wouldn't mind a Star Wars legacy game. Forgive me if there's anything out that fits the bill. I don't think that there is, so
No, I don't disagree. And Star Wars was on my short list. I just don't know what game would have fit it because if you're trying to build something, you'd have to go outside already the common lore when it comes to legacy because if you don't follow the storyline, people are going to be upset about it.
right, and that's a problem with IP legacy games. Like
Yeah.
I can see why like as much as I would love something like Firefly Legacy, I don't see them doing it because you'd be going against the story.
Yeah, exactly. If you put something in the world, it's fine, again, but I look at it like something like Knights of the Old Republic, a video game from back in the day, where they did their own thing before the Skywalker saga to happen. So it'd be interesting if they would ever be able to do a board game along that line.
Yeah.
So Shane says, checkers.
Sylvian says Shadows of Brimstone. That would be a good one.
A game I haven't played, but it'd be interesting.
Yep.
Michael says, once again, Arkham Horror.
Yep. And a lot of people agreed with him. Brad says Catan.
James, as we were just speaking about earlier, would like a legacy game set in the Firefly universe.
Yep.
And what's funny here is the comment that Kevin said. You know it would only get one season, though, right? If James went along the lines and said, still way too soon, mate. And Kevin follows that up with saying, I know, I just made myself sad.
Eric says chess.
Jack agrees with chess. Which Gary, in Jack's concept on there, says, now this would be cool if something like Nightmare Chess was mixed into it.
Yeah. With miniatures and dice. That would be kind of neat. I do own Nightmare Chess. I do like it. It's in my chess set. So, because why not, right?
Yeah.
Corey says all of the games should have been Legacy. I think he's trying to off-troll all the people who are like, I hate Legacy.
Legacy, yeah. Greg says Nexus Op, a game that I haven't played, so I'm not too familiar with, but cool.
Yeah. Kiko says Wasteland Express Delivery Service.
I would be cool with that. A nice campaign in that game would be fun.
Maybe, yeah.
Kirk says Hungry Hungry Hippos.
I mean, the lifespan of a hippo, I guess?
Sure. Or you're like warring hippo tribes trying to get all the food and control the waterways for yourself.
Yeah. Jackie says Spirit Island Legacy, having to decide between which new powers to unlock, putting permanent stickers on lands, and fear cards which change their effects. A campaign that introduce new adversaries and scenarios. Can someone make this, please?
Again, as I was saying earlier when someone mentioned it, there is a really good comment here, and that intrigues me.
Yep.
Nathaniel says, Shadow over Camelot. You could take the players from Squires to Knights and do all sorts of quest lines.
That would be awesome. That would be
really neat, but the thing about that kind of stuff is because Shadows over Camelot has that hidden trader aspect in it.
Yeah. It has
How can you do that over a series of games?
Yeah, I don't know if you could. I mean, unless you introduced it later. I can see, like say, Betrayal Legacy, that has the potential for traders later on, without spoiling anything. But that really does have variables where there might be one player versus everybody else. But I do agree with that. Cool.
Yeah, so
Chris says, 100% my answer is Black Orchestra. Imagine getting to plot Hitler's assassination over 7 games, trying to infiltrate secret documents, convert high-level military generals to your side, crack his travel schedule, and then having to plot an assassination attempt based on which missions you succeeded or failed at. Then, say you'd have 3 final game sessions, which would be attempts to carry out the plots you crafted.
That'd be interesting. I have never actually played Black Orchestra, but that timeline, or the way he just wrote that all out, makes me intrigued.
I completely agree with him. Make it happen, man. Make it happen.
So, John says Hero Quest. And what's interesting about this is that was one of the games I said should get a reprint.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's rumblings going around that there was a trademark for Hero Quest Legacy.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Rob Davio got his hands on it.
That's a question, huh?
Yeah.
Robert says, Exploding Kittens, don't know why, but it feels right. Does it? I don't... Your thoughts? I don't know. So, my thoughts on, not to get too far off tangent, but Exploding Kittens, it's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but I have very low expectation for it.
Exactly. Same with me.
Yeah. I mean, it worked. I didn't enjoy it.
It wasn't fun, honestly. To me, it was passable as an activity.
Okay. Yeah. So you like it less than I did.
Tokaido, another activity.
No, Tokaido's not an activity. What are you talking about? Tokaido would actually lend itself really neat, because if you're traveling along the road of Tokaido and visiting all these spots in Japan, that would be cool to do that over... Like see how things change over different years, like you revisit every year and have it be like almost a generational thing. That'd be cool.
Sure.
Mark says Monopoly, because then people would be forced to play the actual rules, at least until they opened up the free parking rule envelope.
Garrett seconds that Monopoly Legacy would be an instant buy for him.
Yep. Ryan says, I wouldn't buy it, but Arkham Horror the LCG.
That's pretty much already a legacy game as you...
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. It's a campaign-driven game, so... Adrian says, and this one actually has me intrigued, because when I was a kid, I loved the Conan series, and that's a Conan Saga board game.
Yeah. Russell adds Dice Forge. Now imagine that one.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
But every box would just be like, okay, there's dice in here.
Right, exactly. More dice faces, different rules, different abilities. I mean, story-wise, it wouldn't make any sense. It
wouldn't make any sense. That's a game that has theme just kind of plastered on, but it's still fun to play.
Yeah. All right, skip
I'm
the
just going to
next
go
one.
ahead and skip the next one, and we'll
Yep.
go to the last one. And Corey says Legacy of Madness.
Yeah, I'm
So is that a Cthulhu game?
maybe Mansions of Madness, but Legacy maybe. That's what I'm
And
guessing.
that was just recently added 1 minute ago.
Yep. So there we go. Those are our viewers, mostly who are serious. Some brought up some phenomenal ideas. With that being said, were any of yours listed? I mean, I know you said that two of them were. None of my
Two
honorable
of them.
mentions were.
None of my honorable mentions, two of my actual games were mentioned.
Only one of mine was.
My number one and my number two were mentioned. My
Okay.
number three was not.
Then let's get into it. Daniel, how did you approach this list?
As we talked about earlier, I went with the kind of the same rules that the person above mentioned earlier about going with the rules of is it a great game? Does it expand itself? Does it lend itself to that kind of style of legacy?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I went. My honorable mentions, I couldn't answer all of those questions, but I kind of was intrigued how they could work these into being legacy versions. But my actual games follow those guidelines.
Yeah. What I tried to do was I tried to realistically think which would benefit from having a changing storyline. With one exception, one would be cool, but I also went with like the idea of, let's say, Machikoro Legacy. That it technically has a storyline, but
Yeah.
really it's just adding new mechanisms and new variables to it. Let's take Charterstone for example. The storyline pretty nil, right? And same with like
I don't
Rise
know.
of
I only played the one.
yeah, well like Rise of Queensdale. Like the story is so far
It's there,
pretty
but it's not important.
yeah. It's less about the storyline and more of how did the
Yelling at your
mechanisms change.
yelling at your friends to that finish the game before you're ready.
Yeah, exactly. No, and so like, I mean, if you're looking for like story-driven stuff, Charterstone and Manchikoro Legacy are not the ones you go for. But if you are looking for like ones that could have a great foundation of storyline, Betrayal Legacy was a great example, and same with Pandemic Legacy. Those needed a storyline. So I tried to find games that I thought would fit one of those two bills. Either would hugely benefit from changing an evolving of mechanisms, or would have a really great storyline and have it be super thematic by adding that in. And my number
Okay.
one, I feel, does both.
All
So
right. So,
we'll talk
who do
about
you
that.
want to start on this one?
Um, this was easier for you, so how about I start? Because my honorable mentions are absolute cheats on this. Because my first honorable mention is almost a legacy game, and I feel the fact that since it wasn't made into a legacy game, technically, it wasn't good. It wasn't good enough, and that's Dragonfire. It,
Okay. Yeah, I
it
get you on that one.
if we would have been able to permanently evolve our characters, with the exception of like the XP,
You can give
sure,
yourself like traits and stuff like that, but like weapons that you find throughout the game and
right,
carry over and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I
yes.
don't disagree with you on that at all.
Or if you can forge new weapons or
Mm-hmm.
learn new spells that are permanent for you. Like it makes no sense to every time you play it, oh, I have to
After
pay money by defeating monsters to remember this spell that I somehow
Or
knew.
and not just that, modify your deck. I mean, Gloomhaven does that
Mm-hmm.
with its attack values. Its randomizer, basically, instead of dice, it's the cards where you can take out your plus zeros and put plus threes in there,
Yes.
or plus ones that have piercing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the same cards I'm using from game one are the same cards I'm using for game, I don't know, 10, and I'm still having to use everything. I don't upgrade. My character doesn't upgrade other than my powers.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly. No, that's why I put Dragonfire, because it's technically a legacy campaign game already, but it could
Yeah.
have it could have been so much bigger.
It could have been so much better, yeah. So my first honorable mention on this one is my cheat, really. You could throw Tapestry into it, but I went with two games I haven't even played, but just intrigues me, and that's Nations, I own, and Through the Ages. And these are more just give me a civilization game, a 4X game with a legacy aspect in it.
Mm-hmm.
As you're going along, things are opening up. You're meeting new tribes. You're learning new weapons. The technology is advancing as you're moving along. To me, that would make a great game.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be really fun actually. My my second honorable mention, it's also technically a legacy thing. And what I mean by legacy is that you do permanently alter components in the game, but it's a one-time use game, and that's the Exit series. I would love to see a multi-leveled Exit series, and I know they've came out with like ones that go over 2 or 3 storylines, and they kind of did that with the adventure games too, where you play it 2 or 3 times. But man, I would love to have like a 10 to 15 game escape room series that changes how you play every time you play it. I don't know how that would be implemented. That's why it's an honorable mention, because realistically, you could have a storyline with it, but not really. I mean, I guess it would go along like a murder mystery thing, right?
Well, but it's funny because that you mentioned it. I've played the unlocked escape room games, and I played 1 or 2 exits. I did buy an adventure game, so there's that. But what I think would work is because Unlock has that series of games where it's that same mad scientist, and you're usually the mouse trying to escape the lab, but he's in like 3 other programs. So it would it could lend itself to that kind of storyline.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you wanted to go, like, really dark, like, imagine, like, Saw, like, the movie, but put into, like, a game. You have to, like, you have an ever-increasing series of puzzles that just get worse and worse and more difficult, but you could do it. You have the ability to.
Yeah, no. That sounds interesting. So, my next game is more of a tongue-in-cheek, kind of a fun type of honorable mention. Because I really love this game. And what would be cool and how you would do it is that you would have a modular board. So my game is a racing game. My favorite racing game, Downforce.
Downforce, okay.
The thing about racing itself is it's a series of games trying to find out who's going to be the grand champion after winning all these races. And what you could do is you could do a modular board. You play over a series of trying to find out who's going to win the cup, I guess you can say, whatever cup they want to call it, the Restoration Cup. And you're going through that, you're opening new tracks, you're opening stickers that modify your car, giving you an increase in your speed that you can put on your cars for your drivers and stuff like that. So making blue go a little bit faster or red go a little bit slower. So I think it would be just an intriguing concept. I don't know how it would fit. That's why it's in my honorable mentions. But just give you something to strive for as you're playing along a series of legacy campaign games.
Right. Yeah, that's a cool one. That makes a lot of sense. I never thought about a legacy racing game, but that would be super cool. I mean, I guess any sport could do that, you know, like have I don't know how much it would be more than just like, oh, you're playing in a tournament bracket, but that would be cool to have like this massive sport that constantly changes.
Yeah, and you look at something like horse racing. You could do a game like that in horse racing where you're trying to get the Triple Crown.
Yeah, that's cool. Good pick, even though it's an honorable mention.
I just don't know how it would fit into a legacy aspect of it. That's why it's in an honorable mention.
Right. And my last honorable mention is also, I don't know how the story would work because they're pretty themeless games. I have 2 examples for it, and I'm lumping them together because I feel like it's an engine building system is a really great.
Wow.
Yeah, who knew? All 3 of my next ones are pretty theme filled, but no, I think pure engine building games is awesome for legacy, because you invent new things and you do new stuff and you find new discoveries and stuff. So I picked both.
Is this Gizmos?
Gizmos and Quacks of Quedlinburg, both together, because I mean either one would be fine. I would totally buy legacy expansion. And in fact, the fact that John D. Clare made the Saga expansion for Space Base proves that point. You know, he threw some storyline into it, and he made this evolving expansion thing going. I like it. I think that would really benefit from those. But also, it's only just because I want more content from it, and that's why it's an honorable mention and not, like, I don't think it would benefit from the story.
So, the next game on my list, my last honorable mention here, is a game that I really do like. I don't play it often. It doesn't get played a lot. But it intrigues me how this would work as a legacy, and that's evolution. You're literally evolving. Instead of like playing and having multiple creatures and stuff like that, you're playing to evolve your creature as it goes along. Oh no, Daniel over there made himself a carnivore, so now I need to try to set myself up to get spikes and try to get more food. Make myself a little fat. Maybe he'll burrow underground so he can't find me. Well, you see I'm doing that. maybe your thing is you're going to be able to upgrade your paws to be like this massive diggers, like a mole or something like that, to go after my burrowing species. So, and then you add like the climate expansion into it, where you're dealing with the hot and the cold, and you're trying to evolve your creature to deal with those as well as the terrors that are around you. I think it would be quite intriguing.
That would be awesome. Cool. Well, Daniel, let's get into the list.
Alrighty.
Our actual 3 and why we would. I don't mind starting again, if you want. But
go ahead.
Yeah, all 3 of mine I think would. They're sound games already, and I feel like the theme in them, they're not that strong of a theme, but that's why I think the storyline matched with the theme of the game would really make it awesome. And one is actually an IP game, technically.
Huh.
And
so we're doing the guessing game like we always do?
Yeah. It's a game that is a very influential series of IPs from the same company, and it's right over your head. It's a Prospero Hall game where
is that Horrified?
Nope.
Back to the Future?
You have a series of villains that you are playing as.
Oh, Villainous, okay.
Villainous. Can you imagine how cool if they actually threw a storyline like through these villains together, and you have more interaction, and if I win with Jafar, you know, I have this like upgraded, I am now the ruler of this, you know, and how that would affect future games played with Jafar, or maybe he would go away and then you'd bring in other villains and other timelines from Disney, even if they went chronologically by how they released them, or chronologically by when they take place. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine how cool a legacy
it would be intriguing. No, it would be quite intriguing. I don't know how you would turn that into a legacy game just because of the way it plays, but it'd be quite intriguing. I would not turn it down. And the thing is, you don't necessarily have to stick with Disney. They did release Marvel Villainous that does certain stuff too, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I'm quite proud of that idea. I thought of it about 20 minutes ago. That actually bumped out Quacks of Quedlinburg into my honorable mentions.
So the way I went about this, I actually just looked at my game shelf for my top 3 and be like, ooh, that would make a good legacy. Ooh, that would make a good legacy. Ooh, that would make a good legacy. And just kind of went through it and be like, okay, how do I work this?
Right. Exactly. Cool. Yeah, but that's my number 3, Villainous.
That's actually a good pick. I'd be intrigued how they would do it.
Yep.
So my number 3 is probably one of my newer acquisitions. And it's a really, really good game. Even you enjoyed it for what it was.
Okay.
And to me, it does lend itself to that legacy aspect as you're going around.
Yep.
You're trying to become the most famous or the most infamous, and that is
Western Legends.
Western Legends. Yep. And so I think this would work because you could make yourself where you're a villain like Billy the Kid, and you're trying to become where you're notorious in the Western world, and new places open up on the map with the expansions that they have ante up, and I know there's another one coming up soon. But you could be a really good poker player and get rewarded for that. If you win so many games in poker, you can open something up that could help you when it comes to fighting, or a really good gun because you won it in a poker game. So I find the fact that has a lot of intrigue, especially for an open world. I've never seen an open world legacy game, and for different ways for you to open different packages and see how everything works would be so intriguing.
Yeah, the non-linear nature of it that's awesome. Wow, that's a good pick too. I would totally play it. I'd be first in line to play it with you.
Yeah, no, I'd be if they ever announced a Western Legend Legacy, I'd be like, all right, I'm buying it. I don't care if it's $120. It's coming to me.
Yeah, exactly. The next one, I thought, what theme would really, what theme would really benefit from having like a time frame, and what I mean by that is like, as you would expect, every month or every season or every year, things are constantly changing, and how you would adapt to it, like as if you were growing up. And so I wanted to pick at least one farming game for this, for sure, that I thought it would have to be big enough. And you would have to, like, you know, the plants that you plant, you'd be able to harvest them or sell them or eat them. And I I think you're seeing where I'm going with this.
I'm just trying to think which Uwe Rosenberg game it is.
It,
Agricola?
Agricola, yeah. I went with the symbol. Or Caverna. I mean, either one. But imagine if that was played over, like, multiple seasons. Like, every game was just a season. I'm able to plant this one. Oh, well, this crop I can only plant in certain seasons. And then I'm going to save the seeds for these because corn grows in, like, later in the season. And so next time we play it, I will have those ready to plant and then prosper from it. That would be a really cool aspect. Like, I'm thinking Stardew Valley.
You know how that would work is what you could do is you could do 4 seasons per year, 5 years. That gives you about 20 games of Agricola. Whoever becomes the best farmer wins the game. And I think that would be quite intriguing. Yeah, no, that would work wondrously.
Yeah. I couldn't... I mean, obviously, I agree with it. I came up with the idea, but I mean, that's one that I think would benefit hugely from making a remake of.
And then the thing about it too is that one of the things you can add on to the game, maybe for like winter, is that you open up a greenhouse. You build a greenhouse where you can start planting during winter and stuff like that. So no, I don't disagree with you. That's quite intriguing.
Yeah, exactly. Because the plants grow at different time frames. You could plant trees that aren't going to benefit you until like a couple years later. Like, I want those lemons, but that's not going to happen until game 4.
Yeah, but those lemons are going to be worth a lot of points towards that end. So yeah, no, I don't disagree. That actually sounds intriguing. Just for a farming game and a legacy, that would be interesting, especially because you hit the nail on the head. Stardew Valley is one of my favorite video games.
Yes, exactly. So there you go. Rob Davio, you can have it. Claim it as yours. I don't want any as long as I can play it, I'm in 100%.
So my number 2 was mentioned. It's probably one of my favorite games, even though it takes a little while. It's actually what you were talking about earlier, an engine builder.
Okay.
I mean, what could it be?
I remember you saying it, and you purposely skipped it. I just forgot what it was. To be honest.
So, again, it goes along with
clue.
Your farming. It goes along with your farming, where you want a time frame. You want to see how the time is affecting as you're going along.
Right. That makes sense. Shoot. Yeah, I don't remember which one it was.
Terraforming Mars.
Terraforming Mars, yeah. That really would be good.
Yeah, so putting a legacy aspect on Terraforming Mars as you're competing companies who are trying to put their effort in making Mars habitable for everybody to live on. It would be so cool because, like, say we go through this and the end game was triggered because the oxygen level got to a certain point, or because there's so many oceans out and so stuff are starting to change. And like, oh, okay, so you met this point with the oceans. Start putting this stuff on the map. Well, we can't build in those areas now because they're starting to get luscious fauna, or certain things are starting to go up. So now we're competing for control over those areas. Right. So it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would. That makes sense thematically. It makes, I mean, if that one person was right, that it's actually in the works.
Oh, I'd buy it hands down. Hands down.
Yeah. So my last one, and I'm going to give you some clues to this. It was on the similar concept of Agricola. You know, I wanted something that would happen, but not just seasonally. I want it generationally. And it starts at one of the earliest points of mankind. Start making, you know, small huts and just learning how to you know, create agriculture. And it's very loose based on that. It's a worker placement game that I feel if it started where it thematically does and just at least start going into the beginnings of civilization, it would be phenomenal. And
Stone Age?
Stone Age. Think about that for a minute. Just that hands down has to be my number 1. Because if you just start, oh, well, I'll send my people to get some food. Well, now that I've built up some crops, you know, next game, I'm already going to be feeding some people. That's set in stone. Some of my guys are going to be better at hunting.
Might as well do some baby making. This way I got more people since I'm already feeding them.
Exactly. The workers that you create in one game are your workers in the next game. You don't directly benefit from them now, but your next game, oh yeah. Like, you have to feed them in the first game. Second game, they have the same problem. Think about how cool that would be, making multiple generations throughout each time you play it. And
And the
then
things that you can open is like new technologies, like Stone Age,
yeah,
Ice Age, that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So yeah.
having different like hazards like that. First you're battling dinosaurs because scientifically that's how that worked. No, I'm just kidding. But
Well, it could
like
be like mammoths and stuff like that.
yeah,
So
mammoths, and then you go into an ice age and you have to like survive considering that, like you start building up some of the first civilizations. I don't know where Stone Age is set, but imagine that like, maybe even Egyptian or
it's Stone Age. It tells you where it's set.
well, I know a time frame, but I don't
Nomadic
know
lifestyle.
geographically like where it's set. But imagine like going into like early,
It's got
Egyptian.
pictures of mammoths. It's in North America, Russia area.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, then there you go.
Well, that's the mammoth area. It was North America, kind of Russia with the land bridge.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go. So you see what I'm saying though? Is like
Yeah.
imagine over multiple generations of it. Oh, mwah.
No, that's a good
Wonderful.
one. That would be fun, and it goes along with what I was saying about making a civilization game where over generations you're building up to become more technological.
Yes.
So yeah, no, I'm intrigued.
Cool.
So my number one again was also mentioned
And
quite a few times.
I think I know. I think I remember which one this one was, and it really is like I mean every Walking Dead fan would hands down play a legacy version of it.
Wrong.
What? It's not Dead of Winter?
It's not Dead of Winter. I did think about it, but I
Okay.
just don't know how it would work well unless you put like a Walking Dead faction on it and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I just see like each of the campaigns or each of the games that you play just trying to change the next scenario.
yeah,
But
don't get me wrong, I get that, and I would buy Dead of Winter
Legacy.
Legacy,
Yep.
but it's not the one that was mentioned a lot.
It makes more sense than Dead of Winter Flick 'em up. Let's be real.
Yeah, no, it
And I
does.
still like
The
that
one
version.
I'm talking about is where you're going across the world trying to find different cultists and prevent the old ones from coming around, and that is Eldritch Horror.
Okay.
I think that would turn itself amazingly into Legacy. You take away, if Rob W got onto it, you take away some of the luck with the dice mechanisms and stuff like that, and you can build yourself. Heck, you can make modifying dice where you start building up your dice pool with certain things as you're going
Right.
along. You're fighting the cultists. All right, we took out Cthulhu's daughter. Let's go on to the next mission. Oh God, Shub-Nugga or whatever is going to come around, so we got to take care of him. Oh no, it's
Okay.
the man in yellow, so we got the king of yellow, so we got to take care of that. I think just that overarching story until you build up to like a Cthulhu battle or something like that would be amazing.
Okay. I mean, Elder Sign I'd rather play Legacy, but that's just
But
the length of
I'm
the
like,
game.
if you streamline it, you can make it shorter. I mean,
Sure.
look what they've done with Arkham Horror Third Edition, where it actually plays a lot shorter than, say, Arkham Horror Second Edition. If you make a Legacy where it can play shorter over a series of games, where you're leading up to the very last game is going to be up against one of the big bads.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Well, then I don't disagree with you on that. I just feel bad for all the people who are just hating on Legacy. I I get their point. I get the upset, but this is the reason why we wanted to do this list so much is not just because I mean, I'm a big fan of Legacy. I was a big proponent of it ever since I first played Pandemic Legacy. And I completely agree with it. I think it's a wonderful system. But I feel like Legacy is almost the new app integration, you know? Like the same people who dislike, oh, well, a game you have to destroy components is the same kind of people. It's like, I don't want to rely on technology to play my game anymore. Am I wrong in thinking that, Daniel? Am I just like
No,
stirring fire?
no, I don't think you're wrong in that, especially with the people who are throwing like jokes of Uno and Monopoly and stuff like
Right.
that. There is a faction out there, a vocal faction, that are just not fans of Legacy, and I don't understand the hate. It's kind of like people who are curmudgeonly, get off my lawn, or
Yeah.
hey, well, case in point, I'm a sports fan. You know, I'm a sports fan. Baseball is one of my favorite sports. People are upset right now because it's a shortened season, so the National
Right.
League, which has never had this, has the DH in it. And people say, hey, it doesn't need this. We don't need the DH. We need pitchers to bat and stuff like that. And it's like, no, it's fine. It's not hurting the quality of the game. In fact, you're getting more runs, which might be more
Right.
intriguing for a younger audience. I don't know why people were so resistant to good change.
Yeah, I guess it's the reminiscent thing of it. It's like don't fix what ain't broken kind of thing. But like we had the interview 2 days ago with Kevin Wilson, and he said it's like how do you change a game that was so ingrained in people's minds and the hardcore fans? How do you change it without offending the original players of the game? And he said he's like you don't change it, you modernize it. And some of the
Yeah.
new developments that have been made, I feel like a legacy treatment and or a storyline campaign thing could be work. It's like the same people who say, "Oh, the original." Okay, I got an error message for my printer randomly. That was random. Anyway, that'll be on the video. So it's the same people who say
It'll
the
be edited out.
original Arkham Horror was the best one, or D&D
Yeah.
Third Edition was the best, or Advanced D&D.
Or the people
You're
who
never
were
gonna
saying
get.
the original Fury of Dracula didn't have flaws in it.
Yeah, you can't deny the flaw. I mean, you can deny it all you want, but that doesn't mean that you're right.
And,
And
and here's my thing about that, and it goes along with what I was saying about baseball as well. The fact of the matter is, what he's saying is true. You got to modernize it because guess what? We're all going to die. It's going to happen, but we want these things to stand the test of time. So we want to make it plausible for the next generation to enjoy these things.
Yep.
You can't gatekeep this way. New generations can't get into it because it's messing with something that you love. Things
Right.
have to evolve, and it has to become better because different people have different likes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to read some of the comments because I'm just curious. I'm not going to read them here, but like later on,
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and read some of the discussion about. There was some on that Board Game Revolution group that actually said like, why do you dislike Legacy? And they, I mean, we joke about causing the stir amongst it, but like they brought up a legitimate. It's like
This was a legitimate topic where people were legitimately going through discussions. Luckily, I didn't see any issues with like people going after each other, but it was more of a discussion actually,
Yep.
which is kind of nice because sometimes you see people, man, they go into the vitriol.
right, exactly, and then yeah, so like Lee Hain said was the first one to really say none. They are wasteful and stupid. And then Luke just brought up, and I love how Luke didn't accuse her. He just said, "In what way?" And just leading open discussion. Good for them. I appreciate them for doing that and voicing their opinion in a constructive way. That's exactly
Yeah.
why we're doing this. So, thank you to all of the people who commented on us. If you tell us why you either agree or disagree with mine and Daniel's opinions on this, I agree with mine personally. I think mine are pretty good.
And you and me are pretty much in the same boat when it comes to
Yeah.
legacy games.
Yeah.
But if you disagree, leave it down in the comments below. Let us know why.
Yeah, exactly. And until our next uh, rickety comment of making discussions into fights, which is apparently what we do here.
Yeah,
That'll be
our
next
last
Wednesday.
couple has really started some stuff.
Yeah, but that's good. That's good. It's creating good discussion in a very it's constructive.
Yeah, it's a
more often
constructive
than not.
conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Even though people are making jokes at it. So we'll try to continue bringing these discussions to us. So if you want to watch this re-upload, we did not film this one live. So sorry our Twitch viewers, we're just having connection issues as always. I'm going to still work on fixing that. Watch it on YouTube. Search Everyday Board Games on youtube.com.
Yep. As well as the audio versions of these are always uploaded on Podbean at Everyday Board Games Podcast.
And if you want to contact us directly with questions, comments, concerns, please email us at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com.
And as always, you can find us on Twitter at EBG Podcast 2020, and we will have a link to every social media aspect of it with Twitch, YouTube, and Podbean.
So we want to thank you all for tuning in and listening to the end here. As always, I've been Daniel.
And I've been Daniel.
And thank you for watching Everyday Board Games.
Have a good one.